pro something. I'm
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone here's pro sex work, even though we know the abuse and violence that comes with that
Exactly.
industry. I'm
Hmm.
sure a lot of
Well,
people are
sex
pro.
workers and all right, well, that's a different.
But
Well,
I'm
not the
saying
best example, but I get what you're saying.
another example. I'm sure we're all pro pro media. We're into, like I said, we're all nerds. We're into anime and manga and stuff, and we know that how that industry deals with like writers being overworked and like
Work crunch.
literally to death.
Topic 2: Damar Hamlin, an NFL player, was taken off the field of a game after suffering. He had to be resuscitated twice, and as of this moment, is still in critical condition. Well, it was when I wrote this, but like now, it looks like he's at least responding, so that's good.
He's awake now.
Yeah, he's got some progress there. Fantastic. This follows a whole string of severe injuries this season. Yet it never seems to make any difference in the ratings of the NFL. Are we desensitized to the pain of football players? Are we responsible for their continued injuries? At some point, should society say enough is enough and ban the sport? Yeah, so I mean, I guess most of you probably know Damar Hamlin. First, I never heard of him previously, but yeah, he got really fucked up. And it's like, I think a lot of people are just concerned about like the game that was suspended because of his injury, like when that's gonna get restarted. Like I don't know if people actually really give a damn. I mean, some people are horrified of the thing to happen in that moment, but do they actually care? And do they really want reforms? And would they want the reforms that would actually get the sport in some sort of safe condition? Well, let's discuss all that. We'll start with our well, maybe we have two of them, but the one football expert I know about, Joe.
Yeah, we've seen, like, I will say this: the NFL is significantly better, and just sports in general, about journalism and broadcasting like injuries in real time. I think that this was the best that ESPN, for example, has ever handled something like this, where instead of talking about the injury itself and the impact that it would have on both teams, it went immediately to the health of the of Hamlin and just of the situation and the gravity of the situation. In the past, they just showed, like, I don't know if everyone's older enough, but anyone remember D-Stry's leg that was just dislocated in the wrong direction? Shit was all the way turned around. There was Tua. That was this year. So they have, like, overall their track record has been significantly better. But I will say that people don't really understand sometimes how dangerous all of these sports are until they get an injury that kind of whips them back into reality. Depending on your position, you can go your whole career without an injury, or you can be in or be as like in reality and say like, hey, like you're gonna get hurt, like you're playing the sport, you're gonna get hurt at some point. Granted, like I did say, like you're lucky if you go through your career without being injured, but I think that people have to recognize that like there is a level of danger that comes in these activities, and what you're watching is a dangerous activity. And there's even things within the NFL that are still dangerous. I'm still a proponent of banning kickoff returns and punt returns. Like that's something we have to ban. Like I want it gone. I want it gone and replaced, because that's where like an overwhelming majority of some of the most wild injuries I've seen in my life exist upon. And something that I want to make clear, and maybe it's like for people who don't know, like what happened on Monday was something that you'll maybe see once in a lifetime. That's not something that's common in that's common, not it's in sports generally. Like you're not going to see a collision like that. You're not going to see someone go down like that. But it's something that like reminds you, like, yeah, these sports are dangerous, and these people Like their lives matter. That's also why I think they need to increase the wages. Because if you saw his wage and how much he was getting paid, you'd be pretty disappointed. So we got to make sure these players are also in a way to make sure that their families and loved ones are taken care of with like monetarily speaking. Because you're not doing it on that nigga's salary. That's for sure.
Thank you so much. Bam, would you also call yourself a football lover and expert specifically?
I am the football lover and expert.
Okay.
No, but like seriously, I think that this injury was something that scared a lot of people, to the point that the players didn't feel comfortable continuing the game. According to, and again, nothing is like set in stone right now, but according to doctors, there's not even a set in stone on the idea of like the hit itself having anything to do with the cause of the injury. They'll have to run tests to see if he could have had like, apparently he had type of heart attack that only happens like 20 times in a year. Like it was a very rare occurrence. So they're saying it's possible that due to like the stiff arm on the play like caused his heart to stop, which T Higgins I think he was at the hospital for like 2 days straight, like checking up on him. But like, knowing that he made it, like that is gonna be like an intense story you tell for the rest of the life. If that does the case, I stopped the man's heart with my bare hands. But they also say it's just as likely of a possibility that he has some type of pre-existing heart condition that like just never came up up till this point, and it was completely random. Anybody who's seen the hit, like if you just seen the play, you'd be like, oh, okay, like it didn't look particularly vicious or like anything outside of what you would expect from a football play to happen. He just kind of dropped at the end of it. I'm super glad that he is being responsive. I think that we understand that this, like, to a degree, like this game does come with its level of risk, but I think the NFL made the responsible. Well, actually, the NFL didn't make that response. Honestly, the players and coaches made the response of like, yeah, we're all out here playing the game for entertainment and making lots of money. But when you know that a man coded twice on the field, like, man, like you decide that like, okay, some things are bigger than sports and people aren't in a position to continue playing this game. So good on the players for their decision.
All right, Pyro.
Hey, yeah, I think one, I just want to say, like, Bam, thank you for like enlightening, like, it might not be the hit that caused it, because I remember watching that game live at a football party, and one of the things that was going around is like that wasn't really a out there hit. But I think one of the biggest things about this hit and about this man's like event that happened is that it's shed a light on how far we're willing to go, and it's dying on the field. It's falling on the field and not being quite sure if you're going to walk away, because like the topic and like the story that that Prime Link mentions a lot, like the injuries are common in this sport. We know that it is a dangerous game where you can walk away with like really bad fucking concussions, really fucking bad leg injuries, really fucking bad back injuries. We know this, and so far up until this point we've accepted this. I think this fear of having someone almost die on the field, his heart stopped on the field, like it's gonna get a lot of people talking about that conversation, and I honestly, I think that's the limit we're gonna be at. I don't know what precautions like us as a society, as like football watchers overall. I don't know what's gonna like be some of the methods that we can impose to satiate all of them, because like while we may sit up here as football fans and be like, yo, the safety of these players is the first thing that comes first. You know damn well there's a bunch of motherfuckers in the Bills Mafia who don't give a fuck. There are plenty of fans of like other football teams who do not give a fuck. They're just like,
Dolphins.
yo, trade him. Yeah, like they're just like, yo, trade him. He's useless now, because like these are just entertainment people. So like there's that kind of balance, but like I'm glad the players decided that like, yo, we're gonna like let this game be a toss up, because fuck it, the dude almost died on the field.
Waterkai.
So I'm on the side of let's just get rid of this sport altogether. It's probably the most dangerous sport and unhealthiest sport, and now the most politically horrible sport. So you get people that play football They have to survive from Pop Warner teams through junior high school, through high school in some cases, and then hope to survive the pros and not get injured or have a horrible head injury. Because of instances like Herschel Walker and Antonio Brown, we're seeing the damages that football has given us. We don't need this. This doesn't happen in any other sport where you're getting morons coming out. And then you also have a high instance of steroid usage just to be able to fight in those leagues. So once you get past high school into college, you're getting some juiced up people that are giving hard hits, that are destroying people's lives, their minds, the whole deal. And should those people in the future run for office, we're all screwed, like we just saw. So I think we should just get rid of this sport because it just is the most dangerous out of every sport I can think of next to soccer.
Hey, Azzy.
I have a huge problem with that take, but yeah, we'll address it. It's certainly like a problem when an athlete suffers an injury, especially a severe one like this, especially a rare one like this. I think there's other underlying circumstances, other factors that played into that injury, but I'll get into it later. It's understandable that people have concerns and they're caring about the safety of the people. At least I hope. And this isn't just a political stunt to say, hey, let's get rid of the sport, because they might end up in politics. And I'm not saying you're saying that, Kai. Let me just put that out there. Let me clarify. It's up to the individual athletes at this point. They got to make informed decisions about their life, about what they eat, about the risks of the sport. Because I think rugby is up there too, and UFC, but
I said that.
This is the most dangerous context. It's one of the most dangerous contact sports, right? And the rewards of participating in the sport, they have to weigh the risks and have to weigh the rewards, right? And it's up to the governing bodies to deal with that, right? And then we can talk about the merit of those governing bodies. It's also important to recognize that injuries occur in any sport, right? So it's not fair to just single out football as this extremely dangerous sport, because then you cut football, we gonna cut the UFC, we gonna cut boxing, we gonna cut soccer, we can cut a lot of sports if we're gonna start cutting football alone, right? So it's important to it's just important to prioritize player safety. Maybe they need better equipment, but it's also important to respect the agency of the individual athletes, make their own decisions about what they're going to do with their bodies in the sport. We're protecting individuals and other aspects of life about what they do with their bodies and how they can identify and do. We can do this with athletes who don't ask that much.
Okay, thank you. And Azzy. Sorry, not Kyle.
See, I look like everybody. I'm telling you. I look like everybody, bro. I'm the universal Negroid.
You see, we both have eyes and ears.
You need to stop.
You need to stop. I'll say things later. I want to say things.
Yeah, get to him. Get to him.
No, it's Isle's turn.
It is my turn, and I will take it now. So, I don't really know about football. All I know is what I've heard, and there was this saying that I heard that stuck with me, that football is a game of a game of gentlemen played by savages, and rugby is a game of savages played by gentlemen. And so I think that doesn't make any sense to me because I don't know what about rugby or football, but I've heard it said, and I'll go with that. Injuries are very dangerous. They hurt. I was once injured. I was once a football player in my younger days, my greener days. I wasn't injured playing football, but I had an injury later on. So I know about both experiences. However, something that I do know about, something that I am very passionate about, is the world of professional wrestling. Professional wrestlers also get hurt. And, when they have to do all sorts of crazy things, in the chat, I linked a video of like, like chair shots, that were done that, were like especially vicious back in the day. Because in the 90s they didn't have like the safety standards they have today. Where people would take like the metal folding chairs and they would just crack it over other people's heads and whatnot and just do vicious moves with them. And as the 2000s came along and we learned about the potentials of injury to the sustained like head injuries like CTE and things of that nature, especially after the death of pro wrestler Chris Benoit, the tragedy that befell him and his family, and it was suspected that he might have suffered from CTE from all the different hard contact hits to the head that he's been getting throughout the years before his passing. It changed the policy in the WWE where they don't script like unprotected headshots with chairs anymore, and even going back in their archival footage, they censor it out. So if you're like watching like official WWE promotions from back in the day, especially even in the 90s, if someone's getting a chair shot to the head, if they censor it out. And I think that there might be some reforms that we might need to think about with the NFL. If it's like really so much a problem that people are getting injured left and right, maybe we need to change how we talk about how these certain plays and positions run throughout the duration of the game. Because I mean, in these contact sports, it's a very good for the entertainment value because you see like the trials and tribulations of someone struggling through great adversity. But at the point, the adversity is too great, and we risk losing sometimes the best among us when it comes to talent and skill, because they get
Okay.
fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
I
We
don't
got
put
we-
into
we'll
account.
open it
I
up.
don't
Go
put
ahead.
into account. I don't put into account contact sports like boxing, UFC, kickboxing. These are things where you already signed up for straight up violence, not a
Same thing in
sporting.
NFL.
No,
Same thing in NFL.
NFL is not combat. We're talking.
It is
combat.
combat. You are literally You are
Yeah.
literally
Sport,
making
not a combat
contact with
sport.
shoulders.
Yeah,
You are tackling. You are
but that's
tackling each other.
So like
You're,
I
you're
think
basically one step away from a street fight.
Ultimately, considering the concentration of a particular kind of people in sports like this, I would wish that more parents of those people would put a science book instead of a ball into their hands.
Okay, but that's a different
a lot of these
conversation.
players
though.
are,
Oh, okay.
are also smart.
Not
So,
really.
Yeah,
like,
they're smart. Like a lot
you
of
can't
idiots.
be like,
yeah.
I think the biggest misconception, at least in the NFL, is that these are just like dumb
Idiots.
fuck athletes doing
Yeah.
dumb fuck things.
yeah.
Like these are
whatnot.
in a lot of cases like the average playbook can have up like over 1,000 variations within, like you'll have like your core plays, but like once you include variations, you're
These
in
are
the
nerds.
500s to 1,000s.
These
Like
are
people
nerds.
think that like, and then like, and on top of that, like the one thing that that people unironically think of, like, oh well, the defensive players, they just guess what plays are happening, and it's like, no, they
don't.
have a person
a
whose
plan.
literal job
Yeah, they
is to
study.
call variation.
Like they study. They do repetitions. They beat in the discipline like any other like any other discipline. They learn
Unless
this
you're
stuff. They're
Jamarcus
basic-
Russell, then apparently it doesn't
something
matter.
I
Oh
used-
yeah, and
something
even
I
the commentators. Yeah, but so yeah, go ahead.
Something I used to say before this before this injury happened is that like football is the only other profession other than war where like a motherfucker will get the shit just beat the fuck out of them, wake up and then ask the question, did we win, Sarge? Did we win, coach?
No, when this dude
And then
woke up, when this dude that passed out
no,
on the field woke up,
I know, Kai. He asked that exact question. That's what I was
like,
getting to.
fuck.
He asked that exact question. Did we win? So I think like when we're talking about some of the because like we can all descriptively talk about like, yeah, motherfuckers get injured in football. There are things we need to change. think one of the things that can be changed is like maybe a reclassification of a sport where niggas are running at you with the full force of a semi truck, bro. Like maybe we can find a classification where like we can fit football so motherfuckers know they're going into it with like a high probability of coming out with like some type of
I
brain
want
damage and shit
I want to
like
be careful with this instance because
can't hear
Damar
you, man.
had a you can't hear me?
No, bam, like he was talking.
Oh, okay, but I just want to be careful with this instance
Thank God
because
they know it's
Damar
muted.
had a cardiac issue. He had a
Right.
I don't think like the tackle just knocked his heart and lungs loose, and now he
Well, it's a
No,
possibility.
listen, I'm not talking.
vibrations
Off topic and
probably
on topic.
rattled his
Hold
body.
on.
I bet you his every other part of his body is equally rattled unless he has some type of special
No,
deformity.
so
But-
Well,
so
hold
then I
on,
wanna
Joe.
be- hold on, let me
Yeah,
finish
you
the
got
point.
it.
Let me finish the point. Let me finish the point.
Yeah.
I want to be careful with
respond to
Damar
that.
because now we are now in the realm of post-COVID injection
Oh no.
era, right? So we might be seeing a lot more of these rare occurrences happen, right? I'm looking at. I heard this before in another conversation, and I was
We
speaking
really
to
going
my
the anti-COVID
medical.
route?
No, I'm not going to.
Oh,
Shut up. I'm not going to
let's
anti-COVID
listen
route.
to
Get that
Ozzy.
correct
Let's listen to
vaccine.
Ozzy.
No,
So
because
what I was going to
like
say, the vaccine
this
is
is gonna be-
exactly what I was going to say. It's a talking
Don't-
point
Yes.
for
No.
conservatives right now.
no. I'm not doing
That
no
is true.
conservative
That-
talking point. I'm not doing
Sure.
no. Of course it is,
Let
but
'em
the
cook, let 'em
conservatives
cook.
love football, so they're not going to talk about this. I'm saying we are now post-COVID injection era, and now you see things like myocarditis, where there's an inflammation. So and you see things like there's a reduction of oxygen in your blood vessels. So now we have these people going extremely hard, right? They're running, they're short of breath. We might have to implement where people have to take more breaks, or they might have to implement where they have like shorter quarter. First quarter, second quarter might be shorter. You might
They
have to
already do this.
implement more. So then they have to implement more quarters, or they have to implement more breaks, like, get more timeouts.
So
Because
I just wanna-
this man had it was a heart condition, right? It was
Well, it
a
has to make a
heart
heart
issue.
Heart
It was a heart attack.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, he had a heart attack.
Yeah, he had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Cardiac
He had a
arrest.
Now
fucking heart
that
attack.
may go into what he's eating. That may go into we would have to go like get into the minutia
So
of what he's
one-
doing in
one
his
of the-
daily
one
life.
of the things
But I don't
that's-
want to bring this into saying now let's talk about
You don't wanna
concussions
speculate.
and the dangers of I don't want to
no,
talk.
like,
Let's talk about. Hold on. I know y'all are excited because I'm getting excited. I don't want to group this in with the regular occurrences of concussions and stuff like that, where that is solely impact based, right? That's the conversation. If you want to have that
So-
conversation, is okay. But in this
So, like,
instance,
I
this
get
man
what
is
I- no, hold
yeah.
on. I get-
the vaccine.
Time out,
played a
time out.
part.
No, hold on. I get where you're coming from, Azzy, and that's why I said in my opening, I don't know, like, we don't know if this was caused by the hit. Again, when I watched this with a football party full of like 100 other people, like, we looked at that hit and replayed it and it was like, that's not really an extravagant hit. That wasn't really anything fucking special. It was a clean hit, yes. It wasn't
Sure.
extravagant. I think the thing that like brings on this conversation is like, we had this conversation before about like what we're willing to allow in football, and this man almost dying, it's good, it's bringing up that
Yes.
conversation, which is a good thing. I think we need to talk about this, and it's unfortunately going to be linked because again, he almost died on the field. A motherfucker may almost die again on the field, and it may not be the heart attack, it may be some type of brain hemorrhaging and shit, because
Yeah.
that's the type of fucking injuries and shit we see a lot in football. We see concussions, we see brain injuries, we see brain damage and shit. We might get a nigga that snaps his fucking leg in half and shit like that, and we got to talk about that. I get where you're coming from though. We don't want to link this straight to this guy because like he died of a heart attack that the article stated, and like health advisors are stating is like it's common and typical in hockey players and baseball players. So like this was something that is
Baseball,
kind of
hockey,
weird to talk
yeah.
about.
Well, to be
And
clear,
let's
he didn't
not
die.
tie this-
To be clear,
yeah,
to be clear,
like,
he
he
didn't die.
didn't-
But yeah, Commodio cordis is common in baseball. It's common because
And
basically,
then like, hold up, before
like,
you go on,
yeah,
Joe.
sure.
The last thing I'll say is we are not gonna sit up here and tie this to no like it was the COVID vaccine shit. That is not what Azzy was saying. Thank God, but like we ain't even
Yeah.
gonna tolerate it here. This is a pro-vaccine space. Thank God.
Well,
Is
I
it?
got hit this morning. First thing this morning, my aunt was sending me. No, it was yesterday morning.
Jesus.
My aunt was sending me posts about this 37-year-old football player with an enlarged heart. That wasn't mentioned in the article, but
Yes.
saying that this person had a cardiac arrest incident, and now this player had a cardiac arrest incident. And this article stated a bunch of different athletes that have been suffering cardiac arrest, which they wouldn't care had there not been a vaccine. But because there has been a vaccine, it's a talking point for her conservative media. And this is something that's
Right.
concerning to me.
But
Yeah.
what
Well,
should
should
be
we-
concerned. Hold on, I kind of want to dispel this because high school
Heart
players have
attacks,
been.
random.
What?
Should we be concerned?
One more time.
You said, should we be
I
concerned?
said, if people are noticing these patterns of people who may have taken the vaccine, may have not, but these people are getting lots of cardiac incidents, whether they be like full on murmurs, maybe just
Well,
a
no,
low
I can find you 7 people doing anything. Literally,
Okay,
I
so
can
like,
confirm.
I want to
Time
make
out,
something
time out
clear.
real
I want to
quick.
make something clear. There have been
Can
more
I-
people. There have been more people who have died from head injury related incidences who played football than those with cardiac in the past 10 years. Having but I want to kind of dispel something which is getting knocked out. I don't think you guys are doing it intentionally, but it's just we care, sports doctors care about athletes' hearts and have always cared about athletes' hearts and never stopped caring about athletes' hearts. That's one of the reasons why there's certain play limitations at the high school level. This is why you have play limitations at middle school and Pee-wee. They have these limitations because they understand that you can overexert yourself and die on a field, which can happen. You want to hope during your athletic career that you don't have a story of people just dying on the field. I have 3 people in one high school that died from heart-related from heart-related trauma, and that's all sports related. And you want to hope that you don't and I'm an outlier in this case because some people live their whole lives without knowing about one, but I do agree. I do understand that the reactionaries are gonna look at this and think that it's COVID, but they don't care about heart conditions. Sports
don't.
doctors care about heart conditions. That's why they study the shit and figure out what are some practices to make the way to move forward to make sure that these children and young adults and eventually adults don't have heart related complications. It could be diet related, it could be exertion related. There's a bunch of different things to go about it. But I think for me at least, we got to make the sport safer. And there's options of making the NFL safer. They just choose not to do it. Again, I know people feel some type of way about banning kickoffs and punt returns, but everybody who does there's so many people who have hot takes about the banning of kickoff and punt returns, but have never been a gunner in their life. It's crazy to me.
Mhm. Yeah, it can get intense in there. I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
I think that, I think part of the reason why we're having this conversation is because there is some level of there was a split sort of towards Twitter and social media of he was out there on the field and they were wow, people were wow, it's been 10 minutes, what are we doing? Or then when they said oh, the players decided we're not coming back out here, and they're this is gonna mess up playoff implications, or how are we gonna get this rescheduled? And it seemed like
That's the shit I was saying before. They care more about the game than they do about these players' safety.
And I about to say an example that which I don't think he intended it to be this way, but there was an obvious split.
Drip Bayless took some L's.
Yeah, Skip and Shannon went. They got something going. They got some underlying beef they got to get sorted out in general right now. But specifically related to this, Skip tweeted, are we gonna play the game? Something to that sort. This seems different because it seems like we're not playing the game, and usually we just get back after it. And Shannon didn't want to. Not only didn't want to, he didn't come to work the next day. Shannon Sharp is a sports commentator and Hall of Fame tight end. If you don't know, Skip Bayless is a classic sports commentator. Pretty popular, been a big time sports commentator for years. Anyways, they had scheduled after the injury happened. Shannon Sharp, being a former player, was especially after seeing Skip's tweet about them not playing, he decided that okay, we're not doing a show tomorrow. We're not gonna talk about. We're not gonna turn this into anything about us or about the game or about playoff implications. because like that man's life is at that time was still very much so at risk, like up in the air. And
sorry.
No, you good.
I will say that. Oh, sorry, I didn't me say it again.
No, you good.
Oh, I was going to say the one thing that I think does need to change, which could be a very simple change, is that you should be able to have the ability to postpone a game without collaborating with New York City. That was by far the most frustrating thing.
Yeah.
Because because again, I'm sure like Pyro said it, I was at a holiday party, and then everybody at the holiday party is like, why is this taking so long? And it's like, because emergency rules state that you gotta, like, New York makes the final call in situations like this. So, and then they're playing this like musical chairs between like two head coaches, and then and it's highly unlikely that the commissioner knew it happened when it happened. So then they gotta like, okay, we gotta figure out what's in the rule book. What does the rule book say? Well, okay, the rule book states, among other things, that like the commissioner and the league office has the last say in terms of what happens. So people are just like learning in real time that the emergency rules around this are
bullshit. They're fucking bullshit. They missed the toilet with their fucking bullshit. And
like,
now that we actually have events
like refs should be able to cancel a game like that. In a situation like that, it's easy to make a cause like that. Like if an injury happens or something, or players deem that a situation it makes it impossible to continue a game, and then you can like make whatever guidelines you want, then it should be the discretion of the referees in collaboration with the coaches to cancel or at least suspend. Like that was ridiculous to watch. Like,
I mean, this is one of the reasons I said earlier in my opening, like I want to get into like some of the changes we need to make to football, because again, like just to point out again, like it's not the fact that this guy had the heart attack, it's the fact that like we run into a scenario like Joe said where people die in this sport from brain damage and shit, and this corporation's not taking any fucking steps to solve that. I can think of any other job field where if a motherfucker dies from doing the job, they're going to do something about it. Unless it's fucking war. Unless you're signing up to get shot at. Unless it's shit
with Herschel Walker.
Yeah, unless
well, I mean, the NFL's made some steps towards concussions, like they're always working on helmets and things like that. But I mean, obviously, we haven't had enough because Tua had another concussion this year, and that man's brain might be soup by the time he's 64 at this rate.
I can say that I'll say like they're making steps, but like Jesus fucking Christ, Bam, you got to agree with me. They're dragging their feet like baby ass bitches. They dragging their feet like they children.
I mean, if you look at the rates of concussions, like over the last decade, there has been dramatic, at least in the NFL, there's been pretty dramatic change. And college has like a terrible targeting rule related to bringing down the levels of concussions. Like it does seem to be a big positive direction.
We're in a different time. So to compete with these bruisers, a lot of people are taking performance enhancing drugs. People are getting hit harder than they were before. Just like in baseball, people are hitting further than they were before. There are crackdowns, but there still happens. When you're getting hit by a roided out dude, something might happen to you. There's no contact like that in any other sport. So why can't we just get rid of the sport?
Because that's not the fault of the sport. That's the fault of the players. We need to have strict
it's not even that.
Drug, anti-steroid policies.
It's the way the sport works. You have to compete.
Yeah. Like
you need to be faster. You need to be stronger.
Well, it's not even that.
If you cannot do that, you will not be able to compete.
Well, no, Kai, that's why I brought up earlier, because like we were comparing it to shit like MMA, which is like, yeah, like when you sign the fucking death warrant that like, yo, you may get your skull cracked open. You may walk out of there with a scar going up your fucking skull because some dude hit you the wrong way. Like, this. So like, I think instead of like getting rid of it, because like, let's be real, talking about getting one of America's pastimes, like, good luck, buddy. You can. I hate baseball, bro. Get fucking rid of it. Good fucking luck trying.
Not nearly as dangerous.
But football. But the thing is, it's more popular by the year, and more people.
Yeah, but like even if we're talking
complaining about getting rid of.
But like like even if we're talking about like danger and shit, like Bam's right. Players aren't really complaining about it. The fans seem like they're okay about it. I think a nice compromise would be like, yo, we alter the status of football where like we make niggas sign a contract similar to MMA, or we have like similar rules where like, yeah, we recognize that this is a sport that may mash your brain against the side of your skull because you are getting hit with a nigga with enough force of a semi truck. Like that should be something that we do because we keep running into this issue a lot where we recognize that it's a violent sport, but then we don't want to do anything about it. And I agree with you. It's not like baseball. It's not like basketball. It's not like any of these sports where if you intentionally target someone and like try and injure them, you get in the red flag and you're getting called out and you're being put out the game.
I signed a
Football
waiver in
is different.
college. I probably signed one in high school if I remember, but I don't think it's necessarily for football. I'm pretty sure like all high school sports require
Yeah, like I
they
think all
probably said
college
some type
sports
of
do that
waiver, but
shit.
I know I signed one for college football. We had to sign a waiver of like
No
play
other
liability.
sport have I had to sign a waiver like that.
You sure? I'm like
In
again. I
basketball, I never had to.
I'd be shocked if college basketball players don't sign waivers
I'll say
related to
this,
like
like
possible. I
for
didn't make it that
my
far.
college, we had to sign a waiver, and it wasn't like anything to do with the fact that football in itself is dangerous. It's like just a simple waiver of like, yo, the college isn't liable for this shit, blah 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 blah. If something happens, like here's who's liable and here's who you call. Like it's the
yeah, it was
basic
basic.
waiver.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the basic waiver I signed when I like tried out for the swim team and I tried out for the track team. Like if you get injured, you're not allowed to try and sue the college because you understand that sports and blah blah blah, they push your body to the limits and you might actually hurt yourself. So I don't think that's the same type of waiver as something like MMA where they're like, huh, nigga, you could die. You could just get hit in the face and die. You could wake up
Entirely
in a
possible.
you can wake up next week and not realize you missed Christmas. Like that's a thing in MMA where like
Ooh.
maybe we should have that in football where it's like, nigga, your brain could be leaking out your nose by the end of this game. And like the NFL as an organization will do minimal. Like we saw, like they're gonna waffle and hand the fucking thing off instead of just canceling the game. Like,
Well, like just asking the question, are you more shocked at George Foreman's brain being not so sharp versus Antonio Brown or Herschel Walker's brain being dangerously not so sharp?
no, unironically, I'm more surprised at the fact that like people like Herschel Walker have hard time doing normal things. Like the fact that these motherfuckers' brains are just evaporated from their it put into context to me like the level of brain damage and shit that can come from football. Cause like honestly, I don't really think about it that much.
I mean, like
Your
to be
camera's
completely
off, man.
fair. Oh crap! It don't matter. To be completely fair, like there's I consider it slim, but there's a possibility we find out in the next 2 decades that like Herschel Walker has no traces of CTE, and this man's just an idiot.
Everybody's just racist.
Yeah, right.
I can't believe that. I have to believe that something happened to make the stupidity Super Saiyan level. Something drove it beyond the pale of normal stupidity to where they're talking about vampires, to where there's no cohesive sentences in regards to anything. There had to be something. Yes, he believed that vampires were the top of the heap, and then something happened. He watched Twilight. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
And he
let's not get too
found
far
out-
into it. And Azzy, what's going on for your
We're watching God of War, man. Just let it
what's
ride.
going
Yeah,
on?
I'm cool with it. Just let him ride.
Azzy?
There's a squirrel on camera. It's cute.
All right.
Oh,
Oh
come on,
no!
Prime. It was cute.
I mean, I was arguing in Prime Chat about some other shit, because some sad motherfuckers want to practice talking to me. But I do think something that can happen short term, like I mean, I said it in chat and I'll say it here, like they have to have much clearer emergency rule guidelines. That was an absolute shit show. And then like it's every single podcast and commentator just like called it out on its bullshit, where it's like, yeah, like one of the reasons why it took so long is just the procedures around situations like this are so poorly worded that they don't know what to do. But granted, like every single owner or coach has come forward to talk about this, which is a lot of individuals. They all basically said the same thing, that the rules got to be changed around that. But also, just when it comes to the sport itself, it's just you gotta make these sports safer. I'm still standing by it. Still ban kickoffs, and punt returns.
Do we need to make basketball safer? Do we
Yeah.
need to make baseball safer?
Yeah.
You
I'm
have.
asking Joe.
Let me put it to you this way.
Thank you.
If Bam and I are playing right now in the NFL, and if I went and put my helmet against his helmet and use my helmet as a weapon, I could get disqualified. If I lean into my shoulder pad and use my shoulder pad as a weapon, that's legal. That's not okay.
Well,
Like,
No, I'm
you
saying,
can.
is there any other sport where you think they really need to revamp the safety measures?
There's
It's not a
issues.
combat sport or a NASCAR.
Soccer.
No, yeah, I think there's a this issue also applies to football, but there's issues with
But I want
like
Joe's
with
answer.
soccer
I'm not saying
involved in
your answer's not
turf.
important. I really want Joe's answer.
But
I
I'm saying,
don't-
but I thought you wanted to answer the question. Like,
Yeah,
are
do you
there
want to
other
answer,
sports
do you
where
answer
this
the
happens?
question, or are you just still trying to virtue signal that trying to ban? I know you want to ban football, Kai. I understand you want to ban
Yeah.
football. I understand that, but you're gonna have to build better arguments because they're dog shit. But it's like,
But I'm just saying, there's a lot of
fine.
issues related to specifically with
I love
turf
you,
and soccer. Like
I thought it was a
some
basic
soccer fields are
question.
trying.
Yeah.
one of the
Oh my
one
god,
of,
hold on.
like,
Hey, everyone shut up. I want to hear what Bam has to say. Bam, please.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, there's this issue applies to football as well, but like the idea of like there's a lot of like joint ACL MCL type of issues related to soccer when it comes to turf, and also with football with turf. A lot of
Performance
players
minutes.
complain about that. Yeah. Which again don't necessarily go into life threatening, but it can definitely affect your quality of life. going
Well, I mean,
forward.
a good example, and again, like this is something that, like, in terms of like the fields that they're being played on, we know why. Like, it's because turf is cheaper in the long term.
And it looks
Like,
pretty.
grass requires maintenance, but at the same time, like, I don't know if I mean, some of you might be old enough, but like there were certain fields, like right now, it's MetLife Stadium. Like, I can't think of a single NFL player that wakes up and says, "I'm so excited to play against the New York Giants or the New York Jets this week at home. God, I'm so excited." No, that shit will fuck you up. Like, it's when I'm telling you, like the turf on MetLife, it's like you can feel the ground on the turf in different spots. And then there's this awful dip point that's right after the 50 because they use it for other shit, and you will just fuck your life up on there. And this is true for a lot of stadiums that use turf. They have like because of like how these fields are used, they're used in a myriad of ways. And like NFL players have been saying it, FLS players have been saying it, sorry, like what's a FSL? Anyway, soccer players. They basically say, "Yeah, we want grass. Give us grass for God's sakes." But the like these like owners and shit and all these players, just like, or not players, but really just owners and profit margins are like, "No, but how am I supposed to sponsor my turf with Coca-Cola and Bud Light?" And it's like, I don't care. I don't want to see Odell Beckham Jr. lose his career over sliding on some paint at a Super Bowl game. Like, it's silly.
Yeah, that's what ended up ending Reggie Bush's that in a wall. He slid into I think a brick wall. He ended up making like $8 million off of that lawsuit, but yeah, that effed him up.
Pyra.
I want to answer like Kai's question because like I'm just looking it up. It's like one of the other sports like that doesn't really get talked about and what could be done in terms of reform is fucking hockey. Like it's basically football but on ice, and I'm looking it up
It's
more.
a sport
but, like,
you can straight up fist fight people in.
Exactly. I was just gonna bring that up. Like
I'm not even surprised.
Like I think hockey
Let
is
'em do
another
it.
sport that no, but like that's the thing. Like if we're talking about sports that can be reformed to make them safer, hockey's just right up there alongside football. You're allowed
I'll
to
agree with
fight on
that.
a fucking ice rink. Like I don't think the solution is like banning these sports. I think there's like with hockey specifically, it's just like heavy reform, especially like yo, you are not allowed to go out and beat another nigga on the ice because like
Would you
bro,
watch hockey if you can't do that?
yes.
People still watch
I
hockey.
would not watch hockey if you couldn't do that. That
Listen,
is
I'm
the
a
intentional
mother.
draw.
Listen, I'm a motherfucker who is all for going to sports games in public because if you watch them on TV, what's the fucking point? That's my take, and I don't deviate from that for anything. That's
get to
it.
see
Like,
that
People
on
watch
TV too.
curling, so
You
I
get to
think
see the
people
fist
would
fights
watch
on
hockey.
TV for hockey. You get to see the fist fights on TV.
listen. I'd rather go to a fucking game rather than watch it on TV. I don't watch sports
That's
games
true.
on
I'd
TV.
watch. I'd
Oh,
watch.
I agree.
So I
Those are the
watch
three
hockey
levels.
without-
I'd rather watch it than I'd rather be there than watch it. I'd rather play it than watch it in general. If I
Yeah,
can
I
play
mean,
it, so much better.
I have
Something
people in my
else that-
chat right now saying like, there's people in hockey who aren't even good at hockey. Their main thing for being on the team is just that they know how to throw a good
Just to
like
throw
fucking
hands.
punch.
Just
Oh,
throw
Lord.
hands.
I mean,
It was
I
a
don't
movie
know.
about
I'm
that.
still in the camp of like, there's like just a,
Which
there's like
has
just
the
a bunch
higher
of
instance of
things.
CTE? Which one has the higher instance of CTE?
It's
It's my
Like,
main question.
what? What do you mean?
I
Between
don't think
hockey and football, American
Between
football
hockey
and
and-
hockey.
Hockey and football? No idea.
I don't think
Like, I
anyone
was-
knows.
Yeah. I know hockey players
We
that
need
teeth
more
is
studies
a
on
thing they
that.
use a lot though. Teeth and fingers are precious items in that league. I will say that like thanks to the Dolphins, I think the one thing that we will see reform on is the independent doctor. Where something that we like I knew this in high school, and if it's happening in high school, it's happening in college, it's happening in the NFL, and that is you're playing injured, but you're not injured as far as the report's concerned, where you'll get like I mean, we saw this in multiple occasions on different NFL replays that the independent doctor tent is just bullshit. We see this in college, like we know the independent doctor tent is bullshit, where there needs to be a crackdown on making sure that there's actual like health professionals in the interest of the player's health and safety, as opposed to in the interest of the game. That's like a very easy
Put a window on the tent.
Put a window in the tent. Like
Put a window on the tent.
I mean, Tua revealed it where it's like, yeah, some of these doctors ain't shit, and they probably shouldn't have licenses to work with these teams. And we knew this, like we knew this after the Super Bowl that the Eagles had against the Patriots, where basically like you had Brian Dawkins spill some fucking tea. Was it Dawkins? It may have not been Dawkins at that time, but one of the players was like, yeah, like Donovan should have been out of the game, but he basically waved off the doctors. That can't happen. And then nigga threw up on the field.
That was basically Varsity Blues.
Yeah, where it's like, and then like, and you'll have players come out with like, yeah, I played hurt. Like, you know how many times like the New England Patriots probably just gave Rob Gronkowski just like, yeah, you can go out there, you're fine. And this nigga retired early.
Here's a cortisone shot. Get out there.
Yeah, and it's like that's not okay.
Dude. Here you go.
Yeah.
It's the specific reason they use the tents is actually for safety purposes. Basically, they don't. If you got like a knee that's being worked on, you don't want like, even though on the field obviously people can tell what's bothered. Like they don't want to like look over. It's like, oh, okay, he's got issues with his left knee. Take it out. Like whenever he comes back in.
Yeah. Like the concern I have is so far that they use the tent as a way to just be like, you good? No. Okay. It's like, what?
It definitely came with some negatives, for sure.
Yeah.
In a semi-crappy movie about high school football, Varsity Blues, this dude, Billy Bob, was told if he catches another concussion, he's probably screwed. And they still put him in the game because they really needed him to win the game. This is something that actually could happen, would happen, and why people's brains are jello at this point.
It does happen. Like,
I love Varsity Blues almost as much as Friday Night Lights.
Dude, did you feel bad for Billy Bob? Like
I felt bad for the entire team. They were a terrible. I mean, the coach was racist and like violent. Like, yeah, everybody almost died
Like,
for that game.
get this cortisone shot. This is football. We're playing.
Yeah, I mean that was the point of the movie, was showing that like this is a terrible coach that like didn't care about his players' well being. Like the black running back almost tore his ACL. He put him back out there.
Sport.
Like, since it seems like we winding down, I'll just say this, like, to end. I just like, cause like I'm reading the story about these motherfuckers.
We winding up.
Are we? Why are we?
Oh, y'all winding up?
No,
listen, I don't know. We talking about fucking movies and shit, and like I know
PrimeCayes. It was related.
I mean, I don't know.
Sir Smokes a Lot is living up to his title.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Okay, well, what they got? Okay, go ahead, Prime.
You go first.
I was just gonna say what they got do wish, because like I'm just like looking at the guy wake up after this and be like, yo, did we win? Like, bro, something's gotta be changed about the mentality, bro. Safety first, my nigga. Say you almost.
It wasn't the first
died,
question. It was like he did ask it. It wasn't the first question. He was like, "Oh, who won the game?" But it came after like, "Oh, okay, what happened?" Like I remember we were playing and now I'm here. Like he's confused. Like, "Oh, okay, you had a heart attack."
Homie had to write it on a paper.
Yeah, he couldn't even speak. Yeah, because That
Was
wasn't the
not.
first thing he
Well,
wrote.
yeah, that's
No.
why. I
That's
mean,
because
like
that was the
snake
first thing he
ass.
wrote.
I quote tweeted that shit because bitch ass snake Adam Schefter, pussy ass piece of shit, fucker said this shit, and I'm like, I can't believe this man people still give him money. Where it's like he said and again, it's not news, it's just a virtue signal. Doctors said that after Damar Hamlin awakened last night, he asked in writing who won the game. The doctors told him, yes, you won. You won the game of life. And I was just like, how do I make sure that Adam Schefter stops tweeting about all of this for about
Anything?
or anything? I want him to stop tweeting, period. And again, like this is a different qualm. I have a qualm with Adam Schefter in terms of his news reporting and his reporting of sports. I know there's a lot of Adam Schefter simps out there, but that man's a piece of shit. But anyway,
Yeah, I just want to focus in on
yeah.
go back to focusing on actual responsibility of the audience, because I feel like we haven't really dug into that, like really. So, I mean, the audience, no matter what, comes back night after night, for these sports, right? Let's just talk about football for now. But they come back, like I think a lot of people's biggest concern is when the game is actually going to be resumed, right? The game that got postponed, it's going to be resumed. It seems like nothing is going to change unless the audience demands that it changes, and since it's still the biggest sporting event period, well, at least within the American context, it's the biggest sporting event, and there will be no change. The money just keeps rolling in. People will say like, I guess it's just too bad. And the injuries keep going on, and then they encourage your kids to go play. They say look up to these guys as heroes, and so you should want to be like them and do the things that they do, and just send more people through this meat grinder. So, do we bear responsibility?
I mean, to some
Vaguely.
degree, but like I think that there was the responses were decently mixed. Like there were enough people that were like, oh, okay, like this is a time where we have to like this is something big. Like you don't see ambulance on the field every day. Like this is serious. But there obviously there was a number of people like, all right, let's get this show on the road, baby, crank it back up. He's we can't help him now.
I
just
do
feel
wish
like it's
people
really
would
messed up. Well, I'm just saying it's really messed up because these people that play this sport go through different divisions. They go through high school, college, and then pros, hoping not to get injured. And ultimately, it's the owners that win. And the owners are not of the same racial persuasion as the people that are taking the risk. That's not the biggest issue, but that is an issue. But all the same, the owners are still winning whether the players lose or not, because the games will still go on.
Oh, just as a thing, thanks, Ace Man. There's actually some news about this from our everybody's favorite snake scumbag of the earth, Adam Schefter. It happened since we've been live. The NFL never considered a few things because Adam Schefter doesn't know how to stop tweeting. Per the NFL, if Baltimore beats Cincinnati on Sunday, and if those two clubs are scheduled to play in a wild card game against each other, the site of that game would be determined by a coin toss. More because he keeps typing. There's a neutral AFC Championship game site, and then the Chiefs, and there's like potential playoff things. But the big thing is that the Bengals are now the AFC North champions, and the game's been canceled. And they never considered an eighth playoff team, so there's not going to be an additional. So
Okay, I was curious about that too. That makes
and then he tweeted a bunch of shit in the past hour. But yeah, the short of it is like, for those of you who don't care about sports, the game's canceled. The Bengals are the AFC champs, which cool. But and now they have like this crazy tiebreaker scenario. Which I don't feel like reading.
I think when it comes to like if the players hold responsibility, I think that only goes so far. Like Bam said, like there are reports of like motherfuckers being understanding of the situation, like, yo, like, okay, stop the game, the dude's hurt. I understand where people are coming from, where they're like, "Yo, okay, when are they playing?" Because like, you, especially if you're there and live, like you paid for that kind of, and like you're just a fan of it. But like, I think a lot of the responsibility does fall on like the corporation. I think the responsibility of the viewer is like, yo, realize that these are people that we're watching and not just like cartoon characters or something that can't get hurt. Like, you know, if you watch something like that and an injury happen, like take the time in consideration.
But you can, but so like there was the article I provided you guys was a guy who said, I just stopped. I just stopped watching. I just stopped being a part of all this. I stopped um uh, giving it my attention and my time. I imagine he seemed to be a big fan previously, so like his money in terms of merchandising and all that good stuff, right? Like you could just stop, but people don't stop, right? Like look, Joe and Bam, you guys seem to be concerned about this. Then
Yes.
why are you guys still watching?
I love this
Because
sport.
I can enjoy the sport and still want the sport to do better.
But the sport isn't doing better, and like
There's been changes. It's been dramatic.
Dramatic, like horse collar tackles are legal. Helmet to helmet contacts are illegal. They are finally changing their DEI and hiring processes so that there's more diverse hiring pools. Again, I'm not saying these things are fantastic. Like they can still do better, but and there's some things that are currently they're just unignorable. Like you can't keep the concussion protocol as it currently is. It's going to change next season without a doubt. And if it doesn't, then maybe we can like reconvene. I can be like fuck these niggas. But right now I'm kind of in the position like they're doing better. Is it as far as I want to go? No, absolutely. I want to ban kickoff returns and punt returns. They're not quite there yet. But in our lifetime they will, but just not now.
It seems like go ahead. No, you go, Bam.
No, I was just saying that like it's from the outside looking in, like, because the thing is, every time when these injuries happen, you're always going to hear about it. But I also feel like it's partially a confirmation bias with it. Like if you track the NFL and the rate of concussions and the rate of like injuries just over the last decade, like again, like just the equipment's getting better. Like it does seem to be something that player safety is something that, I mean, again, isn't handled to the degree that I find satisfactory, but like it is something that like steps are being made, and there's some smaller degree of like some reality of the collision sport that you're playing, like because football's not necessarily not a contact sport, it's a collision sport, and there's some issues that are to a degree unavoidable. Like I would never like sit on a throne and say that there's like we're gonna ever see a football that has a 0% concussion rate, just because of from the nature of at least the game being played as it is today. I couldn't sit there and say that would be possible, but I definitely think that I definitely think the league invests millions. I could be probably not billions, but like tens of millions of dollars in R&D towards the like making steps to make the game safer with some engagement from the players themselves, with the player, at least from a professional standpoint, with the players union.
So I mean, I wasn't just talking about concussions. Like I do understand there's a improvement on concussions, but it seems like part of the appeal of the sport is people getting hurt. Like not like this. This one went like over the top for others, right? Like people were shocked. But just the fact that people just get regularly hurt for our entertainment. Like do you think it's incorrect? Yeah, let's start with this. Do you guys think it's incorrect to call this a blood sport, which is what many people have been saying?
Well, I mean, there's
No, not at all.
There's two different questions.
I don't. Sorry.
Is it moral to enjoy blood sports? I think no. I don't think it's moral, but I don't think that the immorality of it makes it incorrect. I think because people just like what they like. People like watching MMA. They like seeing people beat the shit out of each other all the time. There's reasons why people have that inherent itch to them to see people.
Not what they
Very
like.
fair.
I didn't ask what they like. Is supporting it, right? Like, which is where. So, like,
I
if you're saying a blood sport is immoral, like having one is immoral, then would supporting it also be immoral?
I mean, there's a we could say this for.
Let Alfin answer the question,
Sure.
and then yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I think that I think people are just going to gravitate to the type of entertainment they like. I mean, back in the times of the Roman Empire, there was bread and circuses. People would just gather in the Colosseums to watch people fight lions and tigers and bears and kill each other.
But
So I mean, like,
this isn't the Roman Empire. We have a lot more things to do in our life. Like, it's not like we are working out in the fields. We do that all day, right? That's pretty much, you have the set schedule until you die, and then that's it. And then you get to break that up with like a trip to the Colosseum. That's not how life is, right? Like, we have a lot more distractions, plenty of things that we can do that doesn't involve anyone getting hurt. So is it immoral to be supporting a blood sport?
No, I would. I mean, if the definition includes football, I would say no. But just because of what, and this is completely biased and completely opinionated, because of what, like, anybody who knows me knows that I at least I try to be a really kind, generally pretty docile person. Guys, sounds weird saying it. I'm very soft. in real life, and how I like talk to people, how I deal with people. I'm a really soft person, but I'm also a really big person. And when I was even just growing up as a kid, like, I tried playing basketball. I was terrible at it. I tried getting into other sports, and I was always too rough. Like, in trying to just like have fun with other kids, it just didn't work. I play like soccer, and like I get in trouble at recess and stuff because, like, oh, Baron, you're too big to be doing this. Like, you're knocking people out. I can't believe I just said that. Anyways, I like, when I turned 9 years old, my dad like put me in football, and my mom didn't really want me to. She was like, "How maybe he's too young." She put me in football, and it was like a fish to water. I finally like, oh, okay, this is the opportunity for me to play with kids my age in a way that, like, I mean, to a degree, I don't get yelled at for being rough. I
Well,
finally get celebrated for being able to,
you get
you
to hurt
know.
people and not catch trouble.
Well, it wasn't hurting people. We're all
Right.
padded. It's not like crying, but like legit. Like, I do think I needed that outlet, and I think that it helped me develop as a person, because it was a place that, like, oh, okay, like the things that I get in trouble for everywhere else in life, I'm finally being
At
able
what
to
point
release
can I,
myself.
can I ask at what point in your life this was happening?
I mean, like, again, I
How
started
old were you?
playing.
I'm just saying how old
I
were you?
started at 9.
Okay, so at 9. So from 9 to where you are in college or like full on pro football, where you have access to PEDs, personal trainers, connects that people don't understand, to where you can get extremely strong and hurt someone.
Was that a question?
Yes.
What was the question? I didn't catch
I'm
it.
saying the difference between when you're 9 years old and you're getting your aggression out and you are on PEDs in pro football and college football getting your aggression out.
Yeah, I
Which is
mean,
more dangerous.
I played all the way up to the college level. Like, are PEDs a thing? Sure. Has they been cracked down on dramatically? You can't even go into like GMC and take like standard, like take like creatine or protein without like you getting flagged if you get piss test for something. Like, I think that isn't necessarily the problem. People, like, if you develop your body to play a sport for the next 15, 20 years, like, it really is just some like naturally built 22, 23-year-olds that are just monstrous human beings.
I disagree to a point, because throughout every sport like this, it is a competitive sport, up to bodybuilding, they have found a way to get around certain drug tests for certain steroids. They get a new steroid when another steroid is figured out. It's going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. Mark
Yeah, but that's not
McGwire
just
wouldn't have been
theaters.
hitting. I'm saying Mark McGwire wouldn't have been hitting home runs, and we found out way later that he was on roids. They said he was natural. We're finding out all these different people aren't natural. This is a thing that's happening now in the fitness industry in general. Not even people that are in sports that are making sports money, just basic like fitness influencers are on PEDs. But when you're getting to like bodybuilders like Chris Bumstead, when you're getting to people like Mark McGuire, when you're getting to the football industry in general, people are on performance enhancing drugs.
There's a different level of money. Yeah, I'm about to say
like,
it's way harder with the level of money they put in. Like maybe in like bodybuilding, because like it's an industry where maybe there's not. I mean, I'm sure there's some level of overhead, but you just don't have a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like it's not the same market.
Did you hear about the Liver King?
Sure, like the Liver King not professional though.
He's spending $15K a month on steroids.
But he's not
and if he did
professional.
that in
He's
the
just
NFL, he would be banned indefinitely.
So let's get Pyro and then Joe.
Because I want to get back to your question because I really think it's a good one. Is it immoral to support blood sports?
Yeah.
Okay. No. I think with the way society is run, like we don't need to go back to like the blood sports of ancient Romans and watching niggas die getting mauled to death by a lion and shit. But I think like when it comes to sports like MMA, shit like that, some play hockey and shit like that, and in some cases football, which I would consider definite blood sports, like hockey and MMA, one of the biggest focal points is like motherfuckers beating the shit out of each other. Like in hockey, like that's one of the focal points of the game is when they get into the rink and they beat the fuck out of each other. I think though when it comes to these sports and these blood sports, we can have rules and regulations that like limit the amount of violence that we see. I think hockey, you shouldn't be allowed to, but I think sports like MMA where like what you're getting into, you sign the contract, or you have actual medical professionals by the ring. Like I think those type of sports are okay within reason, of course. Like we have to moderate it as a society.
And as somebody who like
in original K1, nut shots were entirely legal. Everything was legal in original K1. That got tamped down. Same thing with UFC. It was built for jiu-jitsu. So there's rules and regulations around those sports already. You can't do certain things.
Yeah, I don't think it's immoral. I think like looking at it from a perspective of morality kind of like forgets the purpose that these things are, which is that they're just entertainment for people to watch, and entertainment drives culture. So like you're not gonna get like if you're looking to get rid of sports, you're looking to change the way that people culturally live their lives, and like look, I'm all for that in certain areas, but I don't think sports is the hill to die on. I think the biggest priority is to make sure that these things are safe for people participating in it. And right now it's just an exercise. It's an exercise of safety. And sometimes we get it right, and sometimes we get it wrong. And there's always a risk of your life drastically changing because of your actions with that sport. Kurt Busch can't really drive anymore full time as a NASCAR driver because he had a concussion. And then people think like, what? A NASCAR driver can't drive because of a concussion? Yeah, turns out he's readjusted his whole career because he had a concussion. Alex Bowman as well. Like he was pulled out this past season because of a concussion. And like this is something that even like when I was looking at NASCAR Twitter, they're like, what? If you just get a concussion, you just go right back in there. And it's like, I get it. All of you guys are rednecks, but it turns out like if your job is to drive a vehicle, you don't want to have CTE not CTE, excuse me. You don't want to have a concussion while like and have concussion like symptoms while driving because you might actually kill people or yourself. But I think like for me, like my personal priority, if I was an owner in one of these or somebody who's a part of rules and regulation, is to try to make these things safer. Like, and there's ways of going about it. Like it sucks too for as like it sucks to see like pay money for an MMA fight and then have it get as a no contest due to an eye poke, which happened like a few times in the past few UFCs, and that's like a discouraging thing to happen. Or like an illegal hit happens and then things get kind of weird. Like you don't want to see things end up in technicalities like that, but at the same time, you do that because it's like, yeah, these people have lives outside of this, so you want to make sure that they're as safe as possible.
But
and
like,
also,
you go first.
No, I was just gonna say like it feels like within a degree we're getting into the it feels sort of violence in video games, like sort of tier of argument. Like if I had to assume everyone in here, like if you get into like your taste in video games, your taste in anime, whatever, like you'll probably quickly find a common denominator of some level of violence or action that like intrigues you like into it, whether you play that out in real life or not. It just seems to be, I'm not going to make an argument for natural because I don't think like anything can be changed, but it just seems to be something that a lot of people enjoy watching is part of our like competitive competition.
Yeah, but I push back on a little bit that because I'm the one who called it immoral, so I think I want to like readjust what I was saying. I don't believe that people should stop watching it and that it's like wrong, like incorrect. But as a moral standpoint, I think that, gathering around, pretty much like Roman Empire style and just watching people get hurt for the simple thrill of just seeing human suffering, I think is immoral. But I don't think that you should stop from doing that if that's what you want to do. Because like I would say the same thing with like when Michael Vick went away for like dog fighting, or when you have cockfighting with chickens, I would say the same thing. That's immoral because you're putting animals at risk and in danger for other people's.
I don't understand what the distinction you're gonna make. So can you help me out with this? You're saying this action is immoral, but if you do it, it's okay. Like no, murder is immoral, but if that's something you want to do, well, I guess I won't stop you.
Well, no, because because we live in a liberal society. People
you
can
should be allowed to murder.
No, because that's illegal. But
no. You're talking. No, I didn't say illegal or moral, right? If you're saying this action is immoral, but then you're saying, but like whatever, like there should be no.
I mean, people can engage in immoral things. Like we were just the first first thing was talking about cheating. When people are married and they have infidelity in affairs, that's immoral. But like, I'm not gonna like try and like lock people up like they did in the Middle Ages for being like infidelity.
But you would still say people shouldn't do it though. You wouldn't.
They shouldn't do it because it's immoral in my opinion. Just like cockfighting or dog fighting. But
cockfighting, do it. Keep cockfighting.
So should we?
But isn't it an issue of consent that what you're dealing with? Like why we have issues with animals fighting? Like animals don't consent, but people can agree.
My dick can consent. This is why we need cockfights. Okay.
And it's also not to the death. Isn't that like a big distinction we make there?
Yes.
Well, it seems people are at risk of dying. Hamlin literally almost died on the field. So I think like these are things we have to talk about.
I mean, Alex Smith almost died. John Domberos almost died.
Yeah, they almost died.
A lot of players almost died because of their injuries.
I think if what we're doing when we are saying that this is something we want to continue in its form unregulated, and so I think that we need to actually have these conversations about how do we make it safer for the people who are actually putting their lives at risk, possibly when they step on the field, to make it safer for them and more enjoyable for the audience, because I think there can be a balance where it's more enjoyable for the audience and the people are safer actually.
That's why I answered Prime's question the way I did, because like while I can understand that there's like the injury and like the potential death in some of these sports, like I'm okay with these blood sports, and I think, it's not immoral because the simple fact that as a society we can implement safety measures to like cut down on the risk of death. I think it's a failure of our society, and like we've covered this with the NFL, but like it's a failure of other sports organizations when like they see patterns of like injuries and then they just don't really step up to fix them immediately. They have to be drugged to account by like pure audience pressure and shit like that. I think that's more of a problem.
But I think that's another failure of society, is that the audience rarely ever pressures it until we get to the point where someone is literally dying on the field. I think that's also a failure of our society, that like there's not enough pushback from the audience.
There's
until
there's
it's
like, but
almost
you can
too
say
late.
this period. Like we were
Yeah,
blasting brown
these are
people.
things that
We were
are-
blasting brown people in the Middle East for like how many administrations now? And you don't have people, and then you
yeah,
had
and there,
people who
and
like
there've
call
always
these
been
anti-war
conscientious
fucks retarded and shit.
objectors
Where
to
it's
that.
like we
There's
recognize
always
that
been
like
conscientious
Yeah, you don't have
objectors.
to buy into the abuse to be pro something. I'm
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone here's pro sex work, even though we know the abuse and violence that comes with that
Exactly.
industry. I'm
Hmm.
sure a lot of
Well,
people are
sex
pro.
workers and all right, well, that's a
Whole
different.
nother deal.
But
That might be the
I'm
best
saying
example, but I get what
another
you're saying.
another example. I'm sure we're all pro pro media. We're into, like I said, we're all nerds. We're into anime and manga and stuff, and we know that how that industry deals with like writers being overworked and like
work
you know
crunch.
yeah, literally to death. Like we just because
Yeah,
you're
but there's a
in favor of those
scale.
things doesn't mean you're like in favor of all those things.
But there's a scale of harm, right? Like I think that I acknowledge what you're saying, that
Mhm.
there is harm in those industries. And if you support those industries, then you end up supporting that harm. But there is a scale here, right? Like at some point, then like it should tip over. It should be like, okay, well, the harm here is so great that maybe I'm going to pull back from this. So in terms of football, if the harm, like there's a whole list of injuries like just this season, right? This massive list of injuries, and you just keep going further back. And I acknowledge the improvements in terms of concussions. I acknowledge that, but there will be more of these moments, right? Again, Hamlin. Again, I'll even acknowledge that this one is extremely freak, right? Like a freak accident, and you don't have exactly that. But you're gonna have more like unbelievably like gruesome injuries, right?
Just in different
you guys,
ways.
yeah, and you guys talked about and the concussions and it's getting better, but like we've acknowledged, I believe as a society, or at least the medical community has said like there's no level of concussions, no number of concussions that are healthy for a child, right? It's not healthy for anyone, but like are acceptable for children. And so like why is there even kids playing this? Why are we putting this activity on a pedestal?
To be fair,
that-
sorry, not to cut you off, Prime, but to be fair, there's like a few things happening at the same time. At least my level of navigation, which is like high school kids and high school, middle school kids. The first thing is that depending on what state you're in, like there's different rules around actual contact. There's also conversations about, like I mentioned before, banning the formations and the plays that lead to the most harm for these young kids, which is kickoffs and punt returns. So what happens is that you get, and maybe this might be knocking at your door, there's different agitators for it, because basically what you'll have is, if you say like at the largest Pee Wee league in, like I forget the name of it, Bam might know what I'm talking about, but if they took a stand and said, you know, we're going to ban all contact, period, the NFL is going to become marching down to whatever admin starts like, well, actually, guys, are we sure about that? Or if a state says or takes a stance of like, you know what, like we are banning contact, like or a contact until like high school, you're gonna get all of like the suits and execs saying that, well, actually, you know, this is gonna totally change the player pool and how players play. And it's like, we did that for horse collar tackles, so why aren't we doing that here? Because I think changes in the safety is going to change the entire pool of players, especially for banning contact. I'm for it, by the way. Like I'm like,
just
there's
for reference,
yeah,
Joe.
but anyway.
People didn't really even mention CTE until the 2015 movie. It wasn't even a concern on most people's minds. So
Well, I mean, it was
how many years past that now? Is that entire tradition going to change between 2015 and now? Absolutely not. I understand that. But we need to understand the damage that has been done to generation after generation from this sport being played.
yeah.
Even in children that are cracking each other's skulls because they're very competitive parents in societies.
But we have to realize that to say failure of society is very hyperbolic. I would say gratuitous. I think that it's a failure of community amongst us who are the majority. I would say interest in it. We send our kids. We have culture around it. We have holidays around this. We won't even go to church because the Super Bowl is on. Like it's mainly on us to pivot the conversation. It's mainly on us to get the majority of us to get on board for the conversation, because what you guys are asking is not anything new. People have been asking for these accommodations, and we've been toting the flag here and there for those accommodations. And we get those accommodations very slowly. It's whether the question is how quickly can we get those, like how the level of change should be faster, right? We should get more.
Said something
right?
mad racist in chat.
Yeah.
That's funny as fuck.
I mean, if you
Yeah.
if you're actually if you actually want to get rid of football, or if you want to decrease the number of kids participating in it, like,
Oh shit!
you're gonna have to make a step
Bro.
to
Like
you're
you want to, because, and if you get rid of football, they will use that precedent to get rid of martial arts competitions. They'll use that precedent to get rid of soccer. They'll use that precedent to get rid of basketball.
well, I wouldn't even go that far. I'm just saying that, like,
no.
I would but I'm not even
I
going that far.
understand. I understand the level of injury is exacerbated in football, but once you start opening, once you start opening those floodgates, things are gonna happen.
Sure, but I'm just saying that if this is what you want, the reality is, particularly in the Black community, you're going to you're gonna have to get more millionaires in different industries. I know technically the majority, the industry with the most number of Black millionaires is real estate, but like that, it's harder to
Did I
see.
not say stop putting a ball in their hands and start putting a science book in their hands?
Yo,
Or
can I
arts
just
book?
ask?
But you
Can I
don't
just
have
ask
to
a
get rid of
question?
sports.
I mean, I agree. I agree. You don't have to. Again, I'm pro football, but I'm saying that if you are on that side of like, oh, like just saying like it's dangerous, you're not. That's not gonna get your.
Yeah,
that's
you
not gonna
don't
get
have
you
to
across the
abolish
board.
sports to
You're just gonna have
advocate
to
for
figure out-
STEAM, for
Yeah.
science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics and the like.
Ooh,
You don't have to get rid of them. I feel that that's just like way out of that's overcorrection.
I agree, but I'm saying that if that's the avenue that people want to take, I'm saying that like you're gonna have to figure out another way for a kid in the hood to a kid for. Let me not even go to the hood. We don't got to be stereotypical.
Well, y'all sound like those
a kid from
evangelical
a background.
Y'all sound like the, if you advocate for that, you sound like a
Tennis
very
is very
evangelical Southern Baptist Christian that polices people's lives. That's the level of that's what you guys sound like. You sound like somebody who's trying to control people's lives. Football in itself is a culture, it is a subsection, it is a niche. Yes, it's very profitable. Yes, it's shared on media. It's typical in media, but that still it's a niche. And this is a culture that is pertaining to them. You got half of y'all on this panel don't watch football. Y'all have no stake in this. Y'all just have a stake in it because your family members watch it. You're stakeholders because your family's in it, but you're not a direct stakeholder. You don't have direct interest. I can't go around telling them people, let's get rid of it because it's affecting my cousin. No, my cousin wanted to get in it.
And I don't know. I feel like I mean I can. This will be impossible to prove because I'm not in your head. But like I think that if you like from people who don't watch it, who hear about the injuries, I think they think that like the quarterback goes hut and then there's like 3 broke arms every play.
Oh
and,
my God, it's terrible.
Like it's definitely intense, but I don't know if it's as violent as we necessarily like as you think. But again, that could I don't know what you think in your head.
But it's more than that, huh? And then I'll let Pyro next. Is that like there are the injuries? Someone actually was talking about that in the chat, talking about like difference between like football and rugby, right? And I had a friend who played rugby, and he told me about that, like the differences and like continued damage. Like rugby, you're hurt, right? Like you get like when you get that impact, you're hurt. But like it's like with boxing, you know, because with boxing, like it's softer on your knuckles, right? But you end up doing more damage. Like it doesn't actually protect people. You end up punching harder rather than if it's bare knuckle. Then you like pull back because you're gonna hurt someone. With all the padding, you're running into someone, and they may be able to get up and walk away from that time. They may not have the concussion, but it's like the total amount of damage, right, that we're doing to these players' bodies in the way you don't see in some other sports, right? Like it just adds up. So it's not those massive injuries, not the constant breaks. You're absolutely right. That's not how it works. But we are doing massive amount of damage to all these players' bodies, and it's just like for shits and giggles.
I don't know. I've never even had a headache before.
It's not even for giggles, man. I feel like we kind of take it lightly because we're not as invested in it. But these are people's lives. Like I said, culture has been built around this event, like gaming culture. People are advocating for esports and all that. Hold on, man.
That is true.
Go ahead.
So, like,
Pyro.
Let Pyro speak.
It's just concussion unless you're drunk and fall over.
I'm just doing this because like I've been following the chat for a little bit, and I just gotta stop this because like Yo Mods is being racist as fuck up in chat. Like Yo Man's literally asked like how many of these players would be in jail without football, bro? Like Jesus fucking
That shit
Christ.
was crazy.
Like
It's a valid
I don't know
question.
about. I wouldn't go there. I don't know. I wouldn't go as far to call that racist.
Pyro, real talk though. That's some shit that recruiters say to kids. Unironically,
yeah, no,
like,
that's why I pointed it out. It's an excuse you.
It's not racist, it's prejudice, or it's very insensitive. It's a valid question, but it shouldn't.
They
be
say it to
the.
they say it to black
coming out their
kids,
mouth.
bro. Like that's the shit that they say that like, don't you want to look out for your family? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, this is your only way in. Like, literally, you have recruiters who will poverty shame their recruits and think
That's
that
what they do in the
college is
military.
only way. Like they do in the military, they do it for athletics. Meanwhile, it's like we know, it's like people don't like do reading and research. Like we know the costs that come into these sports, and football, if you want to be like an elite player, is fucking expensive. And but then they don't like allude to that. They don't talk about the hidden costs in athletics with these recruiters and shit. They just think that like, oh, football is like my only way out. Like I'm gonna give you a little secret. A lot of the best players who play at like the perennial like, oh, this player is really talented. They're rich. Their parents are either have some type of financial backing to support them, which might mean, and subtext might mean that they're white and they're probably not playing football in the first place, or they had like their parents are willing to take these financial risks to essentially bankrupt their family just so that their child can do this thing, and then like they throw that back at them saying like, well, you did all of this stuff, like don't you want to continue to do it for the sake of your family? Like they're much better about it now because people like finally are just like, yeah, don't poverty shame black kids in cities and just think that every single black kid that comes from a city is good at athletics. But like that's like some old school, old-timey racism.
Now I'm about to say what you just said there was actually super true. Well, people something, and this is something that like messes up a lot of kids that like think they want to go to college to play sports. Like if you want to make it to the college level, and this isn't just for football, this is for any sport. Like you don't just play the sport. You move, like parents move their kids to the district with the like team that gets recruited on the regular. Like they pick up their whole family, and you're traveling to camps like all across the country, trying to like make some level of name recognition for yourself. Like less than 1% of kids can simply go to practice every day and play for their local team and like make it to the college or professional level. Like there's a lot of money that goes into like getting kids' names out and like can't like all the there's a lot. It's just a lot.
Exactly.
Even just the idea of having a system where your coach understands how like the recruitment like portal work and how like college recruitment works, because like some things that people don't know is that it's actually illegal in certain states to recruit recruit high school players in the college outright, and there's guidelines that even coaches, like high school coaches, have to interact with other coaches and shit. So it's like it's not as simple as just like I gotta get like, no, you play the fucking game. It's like, oh, my coach is actually the person who runs this camp or knows somebody who runs this camp, but he's not gonna tell me that like it's gonna help my stock in terms of like players, but he'll like push me to do that. That's still okay and shit. I'm like, it's nepotism on roids. And
even LeBron James couldn't go to like his local high school because he like LeBron, like you think like LeBron James, one of the greatest basketball players. Like if LeBron James would have stayed at his local high school, we may have heard of him potentially. Like LeBron James had to move because he wanted to make it in basketball, like make it in sports. It's just,
like, and this is like
very expensive.
It's like and like to be clear for people who don't understand like what we're talking about here, it's very like you are not going to see a 5-star recruit like at a school without there being just a village behind them. You're not seeing a lot of just like raw ability 5-stars. Like they have like the infrastructure behind them for that. And then you get recruiters that just lie to kids. Like this will just say it's like, yeah, you can do this thing, like, and it's like, and somebody and God forbid you're in a like, God, like the idea that like even when it comes from a film aspect, like there's a reason why you have like I wish people. What I'm trying to allude to, which is like driving me up a wall as I'm like thinking about it, is that just the idea of recording yourself playing your sport is something that isn't baked into some schools' ecosystems at all. And in some situations, it's illegal to record yourself playing the sport that you're on. So it's like, okay, how is a player supposed to? How is a college supposed to recruit me with like all they have to bank with is my stats, and recording the actual game is illegal through school policy. Like, what am I supposed to do there?
Yeah, I ended up when my family ended up having to record my own film to put it out there. Like, because I just came from a small area that didn't have like the infrastructure, didn't have any of the like none of my high school coaches had any connections to any college coaches. So it was like they said like, oh man, they'll find you. Like that's what they told me. And then my junior year happened, and I was like, I know I got stats. Like ain't nobody found me. I ain't got no phone calls. And then thankfully I had a brother who had played college sports as well, and he was like, they ain't gonna find you. Like you gotta find them.
And here's like a cool thing that you can do, because like you can like depending on if you have like a Max Prep subscription or another equivalent in your state, like you can see the replay videos that people put up. Like you can see it on YouTube. Just like look up a high school and just do like a player video, and you'll see like you'll tell where the rich kids are, because the poor kids will have like the grainy ass videos and grainy ass like procedures, and then like maybe they'll know how shading works to highlight themselves, but then you'll get the schools that have the full Adobe After Effects, the multiple angles, multiple camera shots, the school branding, all that shit. It's like night and day from one district to another. But that's like a thing that people don't know, where it's like
and regardless of how you feel about these sports, like whether you want it or not, I think if you like, I think people would generally enjoy like any of the Last Chance U seasons, and just seeing that like, oh, okay, like this is like, I'm not like even like, oh, I'm not a big fan of football or basketball, but like if you watch it, I think you'll still get some level of investment in these kids, and like, wow, like there really is for some people it seems to be some level of need for these outlets, and not necessarily because they would be in jail, but like because this seems to be the little bit of structure they have in their life. This is the one thing they're good
Football's
at.
Discipline.
Football is discipline.
Why, like it's the same thing that
was that not Sharpie's point then? That like
no, you don't bring up jail. You don't bring up jail. Like you don't subtweet about jail and think like, imagine if all these kids like how many of them would be in jail. That's where the shit's kind of fucked.
They could be working at their local bodega. Not
if I'm gonna be charitable and think that he's just not like because again, like whatever racism individuals, who gives a shit? But it's like we can recognize that like that type of language is the language that they do to Black men in particular to lure them into these sports and trap them in, which is a lie, where it's like they use your conditions around you to make it seem like you can't get out. Like it's just pathology of like being trapped in there. Meanwhile, like this isn't something that they're pitching to their white kid and their white athletes. This is specifically shit they say to Black men, like, and Black men and boys. Like it's just like, you don't say like, well, what are you gonna do and think about your family? And it's like, no, this isn't the shit that you say to these kids. And again, like this might make people, like especially Sharpie, because we are doing little pokes at him, might make him uncomfortable, and that's okay, because like we got to remember, like one thing that we got to kind of remember is that like these experiences are different, and the way that Black men and boys are just like seen as men so early and seen as people who are victims of institutions in a bunch of different ways is just a reality that white Americans don't see and don't understand.
We'll see,
like, or they see it, or they come to different conclusions about like, well, it's because like you didn't do X, Y, or Z. It's like, no, like the system is out for Black men and boys at a very early age.
Well,
but at the same time, the majority
slap with when you see the Venus and Serena story and King George, Was it King George?
King William.
King William. Okay, yeah. When you see that, you hear about Tiger Woods and his father pushing him. You hear about Michael Jordan's father putting the ball in his hands, and yeah, that
King
may
Richard,
work out for
but I
King
got what
Richard.
you're saying.
yeah, King Dick.
King, white business name. Go ahead.
King William, hold on. I'm not gonna
I'm
let
gonna
y'all
go with
disrespect
Dick.
him like that, bro. I'm not gonna let y'all disrespect him like that.
He was a dick. He had multiple families. He was
So
a
what?
dick.
Hold on. We just had this conversation in the last topic.
Ultimately,
but,
he
okay, let's
happens
move
to
on.
make something good
Listen,
of
he had a
himself.
successful
but
family.
Stop
Michael
calling out my
Williams,
grandpa.
They
But
keep pointing out all these stories of Black people that put some sports tool in their children's hands and force them under harsh conditions to overcome. Which why couldn't you do that with any academic or other pursuit?
Because a lot of I want to hold on. This conversation can get very messy and very disingenuous if we start going into the academics. A lot of these schools in these areas are not good. Are not good. In fact,
So if
sometimes
And he-
sometimes the
I-
athletic programs. Hold on. Let me finish.
yeah, Azzy, go ahead.
I mean, did you finish your point? Did you get the essentials of your point across?
Go ahead.
I can finish my point. Don't worry.
Because I'm just gonna go towards the essentials. Yeah, we can have that conversation about STEAM, right? You know, STEM. But yeah, we can. No, I say STEAM now because I think the arts are just as important as the rest of them. But
I like that.
a lot of these programs are not as well. They're not. There's not a cultural backing, right, around these programs as much as it should be. Yes, it can be. It should be better. It should be better, right? But the athletics department are usually where the community, the culture in these areas, right, they rally behind, right? That's why you can see all this structure, all these structures have been developed over time, right? It's become a poverty to sports pipeline, if I can say that.
And you
I
can't
don't
teach someone
wanna-
what you don't know. Like I can't,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can't teach my kids the code. Like I could throw them a book and say, learn this, but like you can say, like, learn academia. If you don't come from an academia background,
Yeah.
and like that would like
You
that would
can't-
just be
you
something
can't-
natural
yeah,
the kid has
exactly.
an interest in. I
And
can't.
So now, and so that gets into the realms of the abilities of the teachers. Your
Yeah,
argument is
that's
not with the culture; it's with the ability of the teachers to manage, to articulate, and to invest in the learning abilities of those students in order to get them.
Wait,
to go
I
into
really
hold on,
like
hold on.
what you were saying,
There's
Azzy.
more
Hold
than
on. Azzy, I really like what you were saying there. Because like it shifts that burden. You'll get to hear that a lot. Like I'll call him out. He's not here, but I'll say it to his face. But like DB would like say something like that. Oh, why don't you just like put a book in our hands?
the
And
person given the book is inept, and
it's
sometimes the books are bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know. I think
Yeah.
what you did, like, well, you gave a whole like list of things that make it difficult for people to do that. Oh, just like study harder. It's not a thing that just anyone can do, right?
You
Like,
gotta
oh, guys,
know
just
how to
focus on
study.
athletics. Yeah, there's just or even have the space to do so, right? Because you could grow up in a household that doesn't give you the time to study. Like you have to maybe work. Like there's so many things. And they're like, well, why are you concentrating on football? Well, yeah, because that's probably my best way out. Like even that infinitesimal chance is probably much better than like me just going to college. And let's not forget that we've just gone through a whole generation of individuals, right? Millennials who are complaining about this now. Look at it online that those degrees they put all that money into haven't helped them at all. Right?
And that's
Like,
that just speaks to the culture. The culture, we have people saying go into it, but the culture isn't ready for these individuals, these people of color who want to enter into that workforce.
Well, as
It just in 2018 we just put into New York where it was illegal to discriminate against black Afro hairstyles. There's people, we are advocating for it, but we haven't set up the systems in order to accommodate those individuals. Yeah, we're asking for diversity, but we're not as inclusive.
Well, like
You gotta have both.
To something that Azzy is saying, and this is where this is the best part where Prime Check gets to out. I love this part. It's like the institution of education is not designed to recognize your existence. It's not designed to see you. It's not designed to be a place where you can rationalize and understand your existence as it relates to the rest of the world. It's not designed for any of these things. You're not designed to be seen in education. And this is true for everyone, but it's going to disproportionately affect those who have the least or have a lineage of being ignored by these institutions. And that is Black people. So if you don't have a culture, a school culture that recognizes your Black students, you're going to have, you're basically perpetuating these pipelines where they're just going to go to sports or something else as a means of getting out of it. And there's so many easy, and like there's so many, like if we're talking about equity, right? Like equity is about justice, and that's an ongoing thing. It's not just like the one thing that you do. Oh, we're doing equity this year, and we're going on. Like no, like even if you think that you're having the best educational experience, your Black students are not. And the thing is, you can't, and like you gotta stop blaming the homes, because Black parents are bringing whole students to your institutions, and they're coming out like this. So it's like at a certain point, we gotta stop we got to stop blaming the homes. We got to stop blaming the parents, because Black parents are bringing whole students into these educational systems. And it's the 12, 15 years that they're in there that's creating these outcomes. It's not the home. It's not the parents. It's what they're subjected to every day cumulatively. And then you'll get situations of people where it's like, El Sharif Maki talked about this, where like the two people who are fucking up the education system are the saviors and the capitalists, where the saviors will give you just enough so that you shut up about your injustice claim, and the capitalists will just throw money at it until it works. And both of these people are problems in education.
Yeah, you like look at all these banks who advocate for all these programs in the inner city, but you look at their hiring rates, and it doesn't match the amount of money that they're putting in. So like now we're trying to figure out where is the bottleneck in the process. Where's the bottleneck in this? Oh.
No, it's fine. I was just gonna say that to off your point and Joe's point, then to back to Bam, you talked about a show like it's called Last Chance U.
Yeah, it's a Netflix show series.
So I'm imagining, and maybe I've seen like a description of this, but I'm imagining it's like this is high school football players trying to get noticed by college scouts, or something like that, right?
Yeah, generally it's college. They're at junior college. They're basically at community college level. Either it's kids who finished high school and they didn't get recruited, or they did get recruited by major colleges and they ended up getting kicked out over drug tests, guns,
life,
whatever.
And stuff.
Yeah,
gotcha,
it's their last opportunity to try
makes
to
sense. Makes sense. Yeah, but see, like what kills me about that, like, and it sounds like a compelling TV, like what you said. It sounds compelling, but like what it kills me about that is that like watching that, it's like poverty porn, you know? Like at some point it's like,
but that's people's realities. No,
I understand it. Look, and I get it. Like I'm not saying that it's necessarily wrong, and I'm not saying that the show shouldn't exist. I want to be very clear. But like I'm talking about on a personal level, that like it would seem like poverty porn to me, and it's like, yeah, I can get invested in these kids, but like why is it that this is their last chance? Like, why don't we have other structures in place? Why are, like Joe's talking about, why do we have schools that train out these kids who like this is their best shot, because like their passion for academics has been beaten out of them, right? You know, you take your average 5-year-old coming into kindergarten, and they're super excited to start learning, and then they come out a high school senior, and they're like, I am finally fucking done with this shit. I don't have to crack a book open in my life. So like,
because it's not fun. But I mean, to that example, people like fun. The typical American learner wants their education to be entertaining and riveting and all this. They wanted like when I was teaching remote, I had to compete with Netflix and all that. So I had to now
that's
turn
not-
that up. But
that's not the
that's the
same thing to
reality.
be-
And we
So
say
it's
that.
different-
It's not the
So
same
like, I
thing.
want to push. I want to push
But
to some.
I'm not saying
sorry.
that as in like that's a concrete point. I'm saying that is
So
that is
I
a
went to the
soft
same
reality.
I went to the same school Jason Capono went to. I don't know if anyone's heard of him.
I haven't.
He was a college player that was very well speculated through high school. So when he was in my school, he never had to go to class. He got a straight up ride.
How long ago was this?
I graduated 2021.
Okay. I mean,
So,
yeah, that's the realities for some people, but I don't know if that's the.
It's a thing. And so in that instance, Jason Capono playing basketball didn't have the same level of prospect for injury that a football player would at the same time in the same year.
What sport was he playing? Football?
Basketball.
Just a basketball.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, I don't know. I have a completely different experience with that. I feel like college off was constantly managing both like the sports side of it and the like in the academic side of it. Like I wasn't given extensions on papers and stuff like that. If anything, there were some teachers that had like a personal vendetta, like they thought that I was like the athlete trying to get over. But I'm not trying to play a victim. Like there were obviously benefits as well. There were times where like, oh, okay, we're out for a game. Like I'm not able to take this test this week, and like I did get extensions on stuff like that. But like I mean, I don't know. In my experience, I was still generally a student.
Like
Well,
it's very rare for the individual to be a unicorn and be good at in their academic functions and their athletic functions and their home life balance functions. Like we have to take into context. Like you said, Last Chance U is like poverty porn. It's just me just trying to be empathetic. For me, when I was watching the basketball. This is me being empathetic to their walk of life. A lot of these individuals made good choices, bad choices. A lot of these people had unfortunate circumstances that they could not control. It's not just like the system was just built against them. It's like I had a kid and I gotta take care of my kid. I had to drop out and now I want to go back because now my kid is grown. So now I'm going to these like D League or was it not was it like in sports, oh my god, varsity
D3?
Junior varsity D3 schools, because now I have the potential to get back to where I am. So, like a lot of these people, they may never end up in the NBA, or they might go play football or basketball in China or Pakistan or something like that. They'll go out of country because
or
that's
they
just
can
the way of
fail
life.
into, like honestly, and if like there's a possibility that they could fail into a degree.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I didn't make it in this, but I stuck to the sport long enough that I got this piece of paper that no one could ever take from me. That like
Exactly.
I get to like, you know, that I might make $50,000-$60,000 out of, like, because I have this piece of paper. So that's like that's another reason why like I understand, like I understand when kids show like some level of like success in sports. Like obviously some parents are gonna go in and like, oh, they're going all the way to the professionals. But like, you know, like if you miss the moon, like I said, you can still end up in a pretty decent place. Like even if you're like, oh, I didn't go pro. Like
I just want to go ahead.
I'll say like my concern is just that like when it comes to the last chance U's, like those niggas are still rich, and they're rich in different ways. Like not some, they're rich.
I mean, they're getting
like,
paid because of the contracts.
Let's put it this way, like because the thing is like we interpret like wealth as like money. It's deeper than that. You're at a junior college that has a football program. Name
the
right
resources.
now, like, can you think of 5 schools in your state that have that actually have a full functioning junior college football program that you can just go to?
Usually, when they have good athletic programs.
They're rich.
They're rich, which means they have good academics. And if they're not rich, it's either or. Either they have good academics,
and the thing is that like, and I recognize
the Deion conversation.
But Deion's a unicorn.
But like, it's
I'm not gonna say that. I love my man Deion, but
I feel like the show is so trash.
Deion is a unicorn, and he made decisions in his life that the average individual in his position would not take, because they're not tapped into the conversation. Deion was tapped into the conversation. He was doing
he was tapped into himself.
He was top 10, but everybody is supposed to be. I'm not gonna.
it's to a
I know what
different
you mean.
degree,
I know what you mean by that. But
Yeah.
I know what you mean by it. But he still did his due diligence with the 3 years, where other individuals would not. I'm not gonna say we could always speculate about what he could have done. You know, if he
Well,
was really for the culture. But yeah, but I'm talking
but
about what
this
he
is
did.
like this
But
is
and
the-
at the same time, Deion is a unicorn. He's able to
Sure.
talk. He was one of the best in the league. He was PR trained. He had the ability. He had access to opportunities and did not take them. Well, like just having the access to the opportunity in the first place. There's probably a lot of players who want to coach or get into coaching who can't because they just don't have the skills or the repertoire or the reputation.
well, I mean, like,
So I don't really
There's-
want to. Go ahead.
yeah, like the first thing, I guess, goes back to like my original point is that do you care about black kids or not? Like, and if you care about black
That's
kids,
so difficult. You can
it
only.
it is difficult, but that's why you go into these things. Like if you have to be able to, and this is
It's a
something
lifelong
that,
sacrifice. Yeah.
no, like this is something that like coaches don't get, and you see this every once in a while where it's like because recruiters are too scared to ask these questions. I was talking about this on stream the other day, where it's like if you are a white football coach and you're going to a school that's has a predominantly black or non-white student body, why do you want to coach at that school? And that has to be an answer that's honest. And like we're in this culture of like not asking people like these tough questions. Like, oh, you're a teacher and you want to work in this urban school, and this urban school is a majority white, non-white school. Why do you want to teach in this school? Is it because
And
the
you get
job?
and you get the same cookie cutter answers. Like, oh, I really want to see them progress. It's the same like liberal leftist answer. Or I just want to see the progression of people of color in society, and I want to be a part of it. I'm like,
And then
no,
or you'll just
yeah.
ask, or you'll ask like a super direct question of like, and like shout out to my district for doing this. It's like where like a question that you gotta ask, like, how are you going to make sure your black students in your school feel safe? And you can't, and like the thing is, which is like something that really drives me nuts, is that you're not allowed to person of color your way through answering questions about black people. So like if somebody asks you, what are you going to do to actively help black students? You can't persons of color your way through the problem. You have to be
engaged in the community.
Yeah. And it's and look, like we got to be real with ourselves. Like America is deeply segregated. There's a lot of teachers and a lot of coaches that are coming from predominantly white institutions. They go through teacher programs and coaching programs that they've never dealt with a black student in the full scope of what it means to be a student athlete. And then they're just learning in real time, where it's like, okay, I have my all-star quarterback is failing academically. And he may not be and then like you got to like look at it honestly, and they'll say like, oh, it's because there's something else going on. And it's like, no, it's like, what are you going to do to make sure that his problems are seen as he's a student athlete? And that's the thing, that you can't just handle it the same way that you handle your white students. You can't handle it the same way that you did it, because just because it worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for your students. And like, I know like you and I, as like, we probably could like go back and forth on this for hours, but it's like, for a lot of especially coaches, they don't actually care about their black students, and then it just they build this football culture and this football prestige, and they end up being Nick Saban. Nick Saban doesn't care about black people, and he never cares. Like, he cares about Alabama, and that's a big difference. Like, and that's something you gotta dissect. So for Deion Sanders, when I say he doesn't care about black people, is if he cared about black people, it wouldn't matter what school came knocking at his door. It would be a commitment to that institution in helping those students and being clear about how you're helping.
The Umar take is the Umar take.
It's not the Umar
It's
take.
not
This
the
is
Umar take.
everybody's take. This is your community. Are you tapped into your community? Are you grassroots with your community? Are you on the ground in the trenches with your community? Do you have grace? Do you have grace? Do you have grace for those individuals? Like Deion Sanders is different because yes, he was a high profile, but he also had grace for his players. When he did his runs, he would talk about what he would do for those circumstances of those players in those circumstances. Go ahead.
So I just want to make sure everyone understands we're like deep into the bonus time here, right? So if anyone needs to pop off, just leave. But Bam,
yeah.
I know you weren't have a good one, my man. Bam, I know you wanted to have this conversation before, and you weren't part of it because of circumstances. So if you want, you can have. I'll give you the space to have this conversation now.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, I didn't want to like go. So, yeah, the conversation with Deion Sanders is, oh my goodness, where do you begin? Like there's a reality that Deion Sanders benefited Jackson State University. Absolutely, you can't take that away from it. Like they got new facilities, they got an eye on them that they probably haven't had in 60 years. Plus, like there's obviously some good that happened to the school. And if you
Before you do that, could you like summarize? Because like we did that.
Oh yeah, the situation.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Deion Sanders was a professional football player, Hall of Fame professional football player, and he ended up being decided he wanted to go into coaching sort of a few years later, post career. He was given an opportunity. Well, he started with coaching his sons in high school. Then he had a little like prime academy thing that didn't work out. But anyways, he ended up landing at Jackson State University, which is predominantly a HBCU, a predominantly black high school, predominantly black college and university. And it was somewhat unprecedented because he had to that point 0 head coaching experience. Even when he was coaching his son's high school, he was just a coordinator. So he went from a high school coordinator to a college head coach, head of a program. Obviously he had experience to do so, but obviously he had like name recognition, but he had never been thrown into a position like this, and he had tons of success generally pretty quickly. He then, as of this year, this would have been his 2.5 year, I guess, kind of his 3rd year. He's left the university to pursue a career change at University of Colorado. And for Colorado isn't a very good college football team. They don't have, I mean, they have some history of notoriety, but not like anything in recent memory. And he took a big pay raise to do so. And people are sort of dealing with that reality of like what is expected of black people when they kind of take on these opportunities at like different universities and whatnot. Like because my thing was, I honestly personally like even though I'm here for black people, I don't need Deion Sanders. I don't need that to be his prerogative. I don't need like he can take a pay raise if that's what he wanted to do, but that just wasn't the way he shaped his position when he took the job at Jackson State. There's tons of interviews, tons of comments on him having somewhat of a narrative about like he's doing this, like what's wrong with HBCUs? HBCUs should be able to stand toe to toe with Alabama and everyone else. Like he was going in people's kitchens and telling their mamas, tell your son to come to Jackson State, and I'm gonna make him a great player. I'm gonna make him a great man. So like we're building something fantastic here. And then it seems that the first time he was offered a lucrative check, it stopped being about the kids and it went back to being about Coach Prime.
But